Welcome back to Fair Game. I'm Kristine Leahy here with four-time MLB All-Star Jim Edmonds. So you played with the Angels for the first 7 years of your career, which as a kid, you grew up in Fullerton. How cool was that?
It was crazy. I remember I went back once I got married and lived in the house that I grew up in, and my dad still owned it, and it was 12.2 miles from Anaheim Stadium.
Oh.
Living in Diamond Bar at the time.
Which in LA traffic is horrible.
Yeah, well, there was no traffic back then,
Oh,
so
okay.
especially at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when I went to work. But I guess it was a dream come true, but I think back in those days, I don't think you ever really thought that you were going to get to that platform. I always thought that when I went to an Angel game and you're sitting back and you're watching the game and then the guys go to their cars behind a fence and they drive away, that those were gods in my eyes. And never for 1 second in my life did I ever think I would get to that status.
Do you remember like the first moment you realized or it kind of clicked for you that you were playing for the Angels?
Yeah, it was weird because my first game I got called up from AAA and I went to Detroit and then Toronto, and then when we flew back, we were at home for the last couple weeks of the season. I remember walking on the field going, oh my gosh, like I've been sitting in those seats since I was a little kid. And it was just like so surreal.
Is it crazy to you that none of those teams that you were on made the playoffs?
Yeah, I think we were better. We had that collapse one year. We didn't really have really consistent great pitching. We had great guys, like we had Chuck Finley, Mark Langston, and a bunch, but those were like the anchors. Jim Abbott was there for a while, but there was nothing really behind that. There was just, and I think we were young too, so it was really hard to understand. Winning is an attitude that you have to have, and it's work every day. Mm-hmm. And that team was young, I was young, and I didn't understand it. I mean, I had to learn it. I mean, what a better day, a more fitting day to talk about something like that than what we just watched with the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's this business-like approach to being a good or a great player or a good or great team that's just, it's really hard to duplicate because everyone's got to buy in.
So you were traded then to the Cardinals, and eventually you wound up playing in the World Series against the Red Sox. Mm-hmm. I know you probably don't like to think about this time.
Oh, it's all right.
So the
it was
Red
worth
Sox,
it all. It was all worth it.
Yeah, the Red Sox win the World Series for the first time in 86 years. What was it like being on the receiving end of that whole thing?
We got our ass handed to us. Mm-hmm. I mean, so fast.
I'm glad you said it. I didn't want to say it.
And they were on a roll. I mean, I really thought we were a really good team that year too, and I thought we had a chance to win that. And in the middle of game one, it was like a high-scoring game, and we had a chance to break it open, and we didn't. And I'm thinking, man, this team is on a roll. And then they just kept scoring and scoring, and we couldn't do anything right. And it was just insane. And part of me like was watching it going, wow, this is pretty special. And the other part I'm going like, I have to do all of that all over again just to get right back to this point. And I was standing out there in the outfield in Boston going, you've got to be kidding me.
But 2 years later, you guys did win a World Series. Is there anything from that time that specifically stood out to you with all the celebrations and winning that?
You know what was the most interesting part about that was every game that we won, we were business, and it was like we still, it was like we were up 3-1 in the World Series, and the guys were celebrating. I snapped. I was like, "Hey, we haven't won. You forgot what happened 2 years ago. Any team can win 4 straight games." And they're like, "Oh, don't ruin the party." I'm like, "This is serious. We have one more game to win, and then you guys can have some fun." And it's funny because Albert and I got into a little argument over that. And we were best of friends, but he was like, "Let us have fun." And I'm like, "No, it's not." It's like I remember what it was like to lose, and I did not want to lose again.
You're not like the fun guy out on the field.
I wasn't, no.
So what do you think about the guys who are the fun guys, like the Bryce Harpers or Yasiel Puig?
I like it. I think it's part of the game now, mm-hmm. and it wasn't part of the game when I played, and so I just tried to take on the mentality of just play the game.
Were you bored when you were playing? Because I always wonder when I'm sitting there, like, if I'm bored, these players must be bored because they got to do this every single day.
I think the Groundhog Day was said a lot, and it was a lot of work. No, I wasn't bored because I was really into the game. I think that I tried so hard defensively
Yeah.
to be as good as I could possibly be, because the offensive side of the game was so hard because you're battling these guys that were so good. I'm facing Randy Johnson and Roger Clemens and all these guys, Mariano Rivera's and the Trevor Hoffmans, and so I had to concentrate so much more on defense. I was exhausted every day. So
you're one of the best defensive center fielders of all time.
Well, thank you.
There was an amazing diving over the shoulder catch. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Where do you think that ranks in best catches of all time?
You know what? I don't know. I can't really say because it's mine.
It's okay. You can
but
say
I think it's, I mean, I like the placement that it's like sometimes number 1, sometimes number 2, sometimes number 3 of all times. And I mean, I'm flattered. I really am. There's been some amazing, amazing plays. And social media, every now and then I'll flip on there, or my son will send me something and I'm like, oh, I forgot about that play. Or, wow, there's just so many good athletes out there. It's insane to watch.
I got to ask you about one more specific game. Carlos Zambrano hit you twice in one game. If he were here right now, what would you say to him?
We became friends.
You became friends?
We were teammates after that.
Well, that doesn't mean you have to be friends.
He was actually one of the very first guys to walk up to me in the Chicago clubhouse and welcome me to the team.
Really?
Yeah,
and you said to him?
And he said, hey, sorry about whatever, it's just baseball, right? And I was like, yeah, whatever.
And you're just cool.
This man is so big. And
Yeah.
he is like, I don't know if I'd call it the worst temper I've ever seen, but the biggest, strongest human being. I think everyone on the team was afraid of him. And he was the nicest guy off the field. And I was shocked. Like, to have him walk up and say, welcome to our team was pretty special. But when he hit me in the leg twice, I was like, that hurts. And like, what are we doing here? But we had a rivalry that was like second to none, right?
All right.
Guys were throwing the ball over guys' heads, and we had guys hitting Derek Lee, and they were throwing at us. And Carlos didn't like to lose, and I kind of knew I was going to get it. The best part about that day was in between the 2 times that I got hit, I hit one completely out of the stadium. So.
Well, yeah, I think that's probably why he hit you the second time, right?
Probably, yeah.